Good morning, fourth graders. We're on to chapter 19 of The Young Man and the Sea. If mist made the world. The sun comes up eventual. It always does, don't it? No matter how much we fret and worry the night won't end, the sun comes up. But this time the sun don't touch the fog. Too thick for that. Fog's so thick you can't see the sun, only the light it makes. Kind of a dull white glow inside the mist. My dad says fog is just a cloud that comes down to eye level. But clouds are fluffy and pretty, and fog ain't none of that. Fog is not being able to see where you're going, or which way the waves are breaking. Fog plays tricks with your eyes, shows you shapes of things that can't be there. A floating castle, a pirate ship about to run you down, monster things from your worst nightmare. When I was little, I somehow got it fixed in my head that fog came from dragons. Must have seen it in a book, fire-breathing dragons, only I got it wrong and thought the dragons were breathing fog. Dragons that had scales like fish and breath that smelled of seaweed. There's still part of me that believes that when fog comes in on the tide, it means there's a dragon waiting inside the mist. A dragon that will suck you into the fog so hard you'll never get out. Stop it, fool. Stop fussing about imaginary monsters and stuff you can't touch. So you're fogged in, so what? You can still see your boat and the water around it, can't you? You can see farther than you can throw that big harpoon, that's for sure. What more do you need? Birds, I'm thinking. I need birds. Birds is how you find fish. When fish make a commotion feeding on the surface, birds will circle over and dive. You can see the birds from a long ways off and know where the fish are. My dad says that's how the first human caught a fish, by watching what the birds did. How can you spot birds in fog this thick? You can't. Plain and simple, can't. After a while, I stopped fretting and settled down. Can't do nothing about fog, it happens. You gotta go with what you got. I got a good little skiff and a pail of bait and a finest kind harpoon. Probably the first human had nothing but a sharpened stick or a piece of rock. So I'm way ahead, right? Right? Shut up and fish. Saw a tourist with that on his t-shirt once. Makes sense. Now or never, I'm thinking. So I pry the lid off the bait bucket and cut up some herring and drop it over the side, cutting it fine so the fish oil will spread. The idea is attract small fish into the chum slick, and the big fish will rise up to feed on the small fish. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it don't, and you never know until you try. So I get to work, chopping and cutting. Fog? What fog? Oh, that fog. Does it bother you? Heavens, no. Love the fog. Hope it stays forever. You hear that, Mr. Fog? Stick around and see what happens. I'm cutting up herring and dropping it over the side for most of an hour before I hear the first little splash. Splash like a pebble makes. Figure it must be my imagination, but then there's another little sploink, and then a bunch more like rain on a puddle. Come on, fish, over here. Feed your way up the chum slick, all the way to my boat. A minute later, there it is. The nervous, zaggedy shape of a mackerel just beneath the surface, working the chum slick. Small mackerel, what we call tinker size, maybe 5 inches long. Then another, and another until there's a whole school of tinker mackerel darting up to nibble on the chum, fighting one another for the pieces I've been cutting up and dropping into the water. I'm grinning so hard my face hurts. It's working! And tinker means I must be pretty near the ledge where the big fish come to feed. Got the mackerel in my slick? Come on, big tuna. Come on and take a bite. Show me your fin and I'll show you my harpoon. Only trouble is, I got just 1 bucket of herring. 1 bucket, that's all I had room for, and already it's halfway gone. So I start cutting even smaller and putting less pieces in the water. Barely enough to keep the slick water shining with fish oil. The tinker don't seem to mind, not at first. They're having a fine time swarming in the slick, darting around like small speckled rockets, grabbing bits of herring and shaking it like dogs with a bone. Hey, little fish, stick around for the big fish, why don't you? Bad habit of mine, talking out loud to fish. Makes it less lonesome hearing the sound of my own voice. Come over this way, Mr. Mackerel. You missed a piece. Ooh, don't let the bad boys get it. Fight for what's yours. Go on and eat it before somebody else does, or before something bigger eats you. Good. Here's another piece. More you eat, the bigger you grow. Bigger you grow, the better your chance. Try to pick out one particular fish for a conversation, but they're swarming, so I keep losing them in the crowd. Can't tell one from another. Which makes you wonder, can they tell themselves apart, or do they think all together? Are there bully fish that take advantage and weaker fish that keep losing out? Must be. That's the way it is with most creatures, from what I can see. Birds, dogs, cats, and people too. Which means there's nothing original about Tyler Croft. He comes from a long line that goes all the way back to the mean molecule. Mean old Tyler ever heard me talking to fish, he'd have himself a good laugh. Hey, you, I imagine in Tyler's voice. Psst, yeah, you. Funny looking one with the pale spots. I flick a little chopped herring on the water and watch it settle. Watch the skittish fish watching me, watching the chum, trying to decide what to do, eat it or run away. That's lunch, I tell him. Don't worry about the bill, lunch is on me. Fish scoots in, inhales the speck of chum. Fish scoots back into the school, back behind the boat, getting farther from the boat because I'm running out of chum. Trying to stretch it out, give the tinker just enough to stay in the vicinity and not a speck more. Come on, Mr. Bluefin. Can't you smell the chum? Can't you feel the bait fish feeding? Ain't you hungry? Tinker stay in the slick for an hour or more and then blink. They're gone, just like that. Like somebody flicked a switch. Gone. And with them, any hope of finding a big tuna. I sit inside the fog and curse myself for a fool. What was I thinking, bringing only one bucket of bait? Did I really think it would be that easy? Was I thinking at all? Answer, mostly I was thinking about the money I'd get for the fish instead of how to get the fish in the first place. Like if I could only get out to the ledge, it would happen automatic. As if 100 boats didn't go out every day and come back empty. Big fancy boats with $1,000 trolling rods and gold-plated reels and radar and radios and fancy fish finders and gallons of frozen chum. If boats like that come back empty, what can you expect from a plywood skiff with one pitiful bucket of salted herring for bait? Nothing, that's what. And nothing is what I got. So there I am, drifting in a world made of white mist and feeling mighty sorry for myself when all of a sudden I hear a splash. Not a little tinker-sized splash, a big splash. That's where we'll end for today. So it was getting to the point where Skiff started being pretty reflective and thinking, I mean, I really didn't prepare. I don't have enough bait. He's comparing himself to other boats that have probably thousands of dollars worth of equipment, and they can still come back empty-handed. So it really does go to show that the preparation that you put into something really sees results. But it does appear like at the end of the chapter that maybe he got lucky. So can you ever think of an instance where even though you didn't really prepare for something or you don't feel like you gave it your all, you kind of got away with something? Like you just got lucky? You got something that maybe you didn't deserve? Leave your comments below and I look forward to reading them. All right, I'll see you next time.